this is Mrs. K. You're watching Mrs. K's Healthy Eating Channel, and we're here to help you to eat well and get cooking. Right, now we're going to do our practical work for session 3 using healthier fats and oils. So make sure that you've washed your hands and that you've wiped down your surfaces. I've just done that. So now we're going to start making our carrot muffins. Okay, now we're going to make very healthy carrot muffins, and I'm going to talk you through each bit. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on our oven. Okay, so I'm going to switch my oven onto 180 degrees so that it's ready when I put my muffins in. Then I'm going to line my muffin tray. So this recipe makes 12 good sized muffins. Put these. I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could use a cake tin and make a carrot cake, but this is a lovely alternative, and what you can do is eat what you want to for the day you make them, and then pop them in the freezer, and then you've always got some muffins, and they're a great snack to have rather than cake or biscuits or something like that. Okay, so let's get started. 120 mils of oil. Now the recipe originally called for 150 grams of butter or margarine. Now you can't directly swap 150 grams of butter or margarine for 150 grams of oil, because oil is 100% fat, whereas butter and margarine is about 80 to 85% fat. The rest is water. So there is a little more fat in oil than in the same amount of butter. So when we use oil, we need to cut down on the amount of oil we use. And I've melted some butter, 150 grams, and then I have just weighed it out, and it was worked out to 120 mils of oil. So I'm going to take my jug and I'm going to measure 120 mils of oil. Whenever you measure something in a jug, make sure you have the jug placed on the surface. If you hold it like this, it's too wibbly wobbly and you won't get an accurate measure. So always put it on a flat surface. We're going to pour our oil 100, it's not exact, just over 100. There we go. There we've got 120 mils of oil. Now I do not use olive oil for baking because olive oil has got quite a strong taste. So it's best not to use olive oil. Just sunflower oil or a corn oil or rapeseed oil. Those are all great for baking. So I've got my oil. Then I've got 250 grams of carrots. Here's one I made earlier. I've grated these already. So, and I've measured them out. So we've got 120 grams of grated carrots. Always grate them on the thicker slicer rather than the thinner, because otherwise it becomes a little mushy in the muffins. Next, we need some sugar. Now I've actually reduced the amount of sugar that we're going to use because we are all trying to cut down on sugar. And the other thing is, I never use white sugar, if at all possible. If I'm making a Victoria sponge cake, yes, I'd need to use white sugar. But here, making muffins are a dark colour. We want them dark, so we can use unrefined brown sugar. Or, as I'm going to use, coconut sugar. Coconut sugar is a favourite of mine. It has a caramelly type taste, and I know it is better for me. I am a diabetic, and so coconut sugar doesn't give the sugar rush. It doesn't spike my sugar levels in the same way as brown sugar or white sugar does. And as we will learn later on in the session, this type of sugar, brown sugar, unrefined sugar, is much healthier for our bodies. Okay, so we're going to measure 140 grams of sugar. So that. Get our scales working. I always prefer to use an electronic scale, a digital scale, because they are far more accurate. So there we are, this lovely brown caramel tasting. And funny enough, it doesn't taste of coconuts at all. We want 140 grams of sugar. 140 grams, there we go. Exactly 140 grams. Right, so we're going to put that in our, I'm going to put this, I'm going to keep that on the side for the moment. We've got our oil, we've got our sugar. We need flour next. Right, so we need 200 grams of flour. Now, I again do not like to use white flour. And that is because of what we learned last session, that there is very little fiber in white sugar, white flour, beg your pardon. So, I use wholemeal flour. This is a wholemeal baking flour. Now, what I'll do is put my dish on there and weigh it. Now, what often my children do at school is they will use 100 of plain and 100 of wholemeal. So we're doing a half-half. If you're not too keen on wholemeal flour, you could have a compromise and use 100 of each to make up the 200. But I love wholemeal flour, so I'm going to use 200 grams of wholemeal flour. And I'm going to pop that in there, 200 grams. I've weighed it in my sieve. And the reason we sieve is to add some air to make them lighter. So I'm going to sieve, take it off the scale. As I say to the children, don't work on the scale. Right, so we're going to sieve this, and we're going to see, like last week, what's left in the scale. Now, I once was doing a practical, and one of my children sieved the flour beautifully, and then was horrified to find all these bits left in the scale, and promptly threw them in the bin. And I was mortified because this is the fibre that we want, but it doesn't go through the sieve, so we just sieve the flour and then we pop all the fibre back in. Okay, so that's done. And we also need some baking powder. We need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And again, when you're measuring baking powder, make sure that you don't guess the amount. Or don't just take a spoon like that. That's heaped. Baking powder needs to be measured very accurately. 2 teaspoons. And I level it off. And the reason is, if you put too much baking powder, what happens in the oven is that the cakes or the muffins rise, they over-rise, and they puff up, and then they collapse when you take them out the oven. You have to use just the right amount of baking powder to ensure a successful muffin or cake. Right, so now I've got my flour and my baking powder ready. I need 2 eggs, and I'm very fortunate. I have some hens in my garden, and so these are my good little hens have provided me with some good eggs here. So I'm going to put 2 eggs in there. And I like to put them in a bowl so that I can ensure that if there's any shell that breaks and lands in there, I can take it out before going in the cake mixture. Now, something I always do is wash hands after touching eggs, because eggshells could carry bacteria. So I'm just going to wash my hands before I carry on now. Right, so my hands are all nice and clean now. Now the last things that we need for our muffins is we need cinnamon. A good teaspoon of cinnamon. I love cinnamon. If you don't like cinnamon, you don't have to add it, but I do love cinnamon, so I'm definitely going to put, and usually I will put in a little extra because I love cinnamon. And cinnamon is extremely good, especially for diabetics. Okay, so I'm going to mix my cinnamon in through my flour, And then I'm going to put in some optional extras. I'm going to put in some raisins. And the recipe calls for 125 grams. Now, usually I use sultanas, but I had raisins instead, so raisins are just as good. So sultanas, raisins, there we go, 125 grams of raisins. And I like to put in some seeds because of what seeds provide. They provide unsaturated oil, so good oils. They provide fiber and they provide vitamin E and omega-6. So here we go. Let's put some seeds in, 50 grams of seeds. So I'm going to just measure those. That's quite a lot. And it also gives a nice crunch. You could put nuts in. Walnuts are really nice in carrot muffins as well. Right, so here we are ready. Now we're going to look at our method. Okay, so we're going to put the carrots, the sugar, and the eggs in a bowl. So we're going to put our oil, carrots, and our sugar. Okay. Carrots, sugar, oil in a large bowl. I'm going to mix that through. That's ready waiting. Make sure the carrots are nicely mixed with the sugar and the oil. It's well coated. Okay, we've sifted our flour, cinnamon and baking powder. Then we need to just lightly whisk up the eggs with a fork. Whisk the eggs and pop them into your wet mixture. Okay, so we can now stir the eggs in through that. This is a lovely, easy dish to make. You don't need any equipment. You don't need an electric mixer. You just need a couple of bowls and some spoons. So there we go. Our eggs are nicely mixed in with our sugar, carrots and oil. And now we can add our flour. So we then put in our flour. And with muffins, we should never over mix the mixture. So don't vigorously stir it. Fold it gently in. Fold in the flour gently. So that it's nicely mixed in but not violently stirred. So keep the muffins as light as possible. There we go. Now we're going to add our raisins and nuts and seeds as well, just before it's all mixed in. So we pour that in, and there we just fold it all through. It's all well mixed. All we want is the flour to be mixed in. And once the flour is properly mixed in, then we're ready to go. And then we're going to, this makes 12 lovely muffins. Okay, now I'm ready. Now, the next thing is we do not want carrot mixture all over the tin, because what happens is it burns and then it's very difficult to have to scrub the tin afterwards. So I'm going to show you a little trick that makes filling muffin trays very easy. Okay, you take a spoonful, and because it's a muffin, it's quite a large size spoon. Take a spoonful and then use another spoon to push the mixture into the muffin. And that's a good way of ensuring that you don't mess on the tray. Look at that. Not a single drop. Let's see if I can manage the whole tray without dropping any mixture on my tray. There we go. So this mixture is just moist, it's not runny, and it's not too stiff. If it is too stiff, you may find that your eggs the reason could be that your eggs were very small, in which case, if you've got small eggs, add another egg. Perhaps you didn't weigh your oil carefully enough, but don't add, if you're going to add extra oil, don't add too much because you don't want to make your muffins greasy. There we go. And of course, a lot of children think, oh, carrot muffins, I'm not eating carrots. But actually, once you taste these muffins, you will be amazed at how delicious they are, and you don't even realize that you're eating carrots. So it's a jolly good way of eating carrots if you don't like them. And it will be part of your day. Right, there we go. I've almost finished, but I seem to have a lot more mixture over here. So I might just fill up one or two with that hasn't got. Now they don't rise. Oh, look what I've done. I've messed. So the best thing is to take it off immediately. I'm going to get a cloth and just wipe it. So there we go. Make sure that your tin is absolutely clean before it goes in the oven so that we don't have any burning. Right, there we go. They don't rise an awful lot because they are quite heavy. So don't worry about filling up your muffin cases. We normally at school get just enough for 12. But you could easily have another tray and make a few. If you want them smaller, you could make them smaller and have a few more. Okay, I'm almost done here. And our oven's nice and hot, so we're going to pop them in the oven. There we go. Right, okay, so open the oven. If you're worried about getting burnt on by touching the shelves, pop on some oven gloves. Your tin is still obviously cold, so that's not a danger. Pop your muffins in. If you've got a gas oven, make sure that your muffins are at the top of the oven. If you've got a fan oven, it doesn't really matter which shelf you put your muffins on. And I'm now going to put my timer on for 20 minutes. While those are cooking, I'm going to do my washing up and cleaning up, and then at the end of 20 minutes, we'll come back and see what they look like. Right, everyone, as you can see, I'm cleaned up, washed up, all my equipment is put away, and I hope you've done the same while our muffins have been in the oven. But they're ready now, so let's go and have a look. Make sure you wear proper oven gloves and you don't use a tea towel, because tea towels are not thick enough to withstand the heat in the oven. So I'm going to open up my oven and very carefully pull the shelf out a little bit and then pick up my muffin tray. Take it over to my surface. It goes up. I'm not going to switch it off just yet. I'm going to make sure that my muffins are cooked first. So a good way to know if they're cooked is to press them in the middle and they are springy. They're springing back, so that means that they're done. So I can now turn off my oven and I'm going to let these cool down. Let's take one out very carefully and open it up in the middle, and there we go, beautifully cooked. Time now to make a cup of tea and to enjoy a muffin with your tea. I do hope you've enjoyed this session, and we shall see you again for session 4 next week. Bye bye for now.